So, one divergence was apparent in the area of sexual morality. Pagan Rome was, as Norman Cantor puts it, a sexual paradise. For men, anyway, respectable women were held to a very different standard of chastity. But for men, readily available sex provided sensual gratification, of course, but more than that, it was a sort of religious performance or duty. Historian Kyle Harper reports in a recent study that, quote, sexual passion was viewed as an immanent divine force, the mysterious indwelling presence of the gods. Roman novels, Harper says, convey a picture of, quote, a world keenly knit by the gods so that mankind might find in erotic fulfillment nothing short of salvation. Given this vision, Roman society provided ample means for sexual fulfillment. Brothels dotted the cityscape like Starbucks or Taco Bells in a modern American city. Not Princeton, however. I couldn't find a Taco Bell anywhere this afternoon. But sex was cheap, less than the cost of a latte or a bean burrito. The historian Dio Chrysostom observed that brothels, quote, are apparent everywhere in the city, at the governor's porch, in the marketplaces, by the buildings, both civil and religious, right in the middle of what ought to be most revered. Suetonius reported that the Emperor Caligula sponsored an imperial brothel and, quote, stocked it with married women and freeborn boys, and then sent his pages around the squares and public places, inviting men of all ages to come and enjoy themselves, on credit, if necessary. As you may notice in the tone of these descriptions, more aristocratic Romans might disapprove of prostitution, not as immoral, but as squalid, as Harper puts it. They objected to sharing sexual receptacles, much in the way you or I might complain if we went to a restaurant and the server expected us to eat off the same plates that the previous patrons had already used. But not to worry, the well-off owned slaves, possibly hundreds of them, which made it unnecessary to resort to prostitutes. Sex with slaves was perfectly acceptable because, as one Roman author put it, every master is held to have it in his power to use his slave as he wishes. For the most part, Roman culture was indifferent to whether sexual satisfaction was achieved with same-sex or opposite-sex partners. But there was one severe constraint, namely the ethic of manliness, or machismo, if you like. So although homosexual conduct was permissible, it was disgraceful for a man to be the passive partner or to fulfill the function ascribed to a woman. Sarah Rudin reports that, quote, to keep it unmistakable that he had no sympathy with passive homosexuals, a man would tout his attacks on vulnerable young males. Another corollary of manliness was the cultivation of self-mastery. So sexual desires were to be gratified, certainly, but a man who allowed his sexual passions to gain mastery of him was less than virtuous, just as a man who could not control any other passion was deserving of criticism. By contrast to pagan morality, Christian sexual ethics represented, as Kyle Harper explains, a paradigm shift and a deep earthquake in human morality. The most obvious change was in the specific rules and prohibitions. For Christians, sex was permissible only within marriage, for both men and women, no more double standard. Prostitution, homosexual relations, and pederasty were all forbidden. Even more important than the specific prohibitions, though, according to Harper, was the new foundational logic of sexual ethics. In the Christian view, the human body was a temple of the Holy Spirit, as the Apostle Paul had said. Unsanctioned sex functioned to desecrate that temple. In this way, Harper argues, sexual morality, quote, came to mark the great divide between Christians and the world.